to see more hyperscalers coming in here. If you look at the capacity, subsea capacity that's been brought in by the Google's Aquino, which just one cable has capacity that's larger than the total of everything we have right now.
Of that 500 million, how much would you say you are looking to invest maybe within South Africa?
And you see, when you need business agility, you can't be building data centers. But right now, you need to be able to pivot the business. You need to be able to bring in new service offerings. You need to be able to leverage cloud very quickly. You need to do these things. So it's a no-brainer. Collocate. Let that be somebody else's problem.
Today we are joined by Dr. Ayotunde Coker. Dr. Ayotunde Coker is the CEO of Open Access Data Centers. He has traveled all the way from Nigeria this morning and is joining us on ITWeb TV. Welcome to ITWeb TV, Dr. Coker.
Thank you very much. Great to be here, and I'm delighted really to be here, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. Just to start with, Open Access Data Centers, just tell us a little bit about the background of the company, how it sits within WEOC, which is your parent company. Then we just take the conversation from there.
Yes, you're right. WEOC is the parent company for Open Access Data Centers. WEOC was established 15 years ago, really as part of the consortium on the Easy Cable, investor in the Easy Cable, and has fantastically expanded its value proposition in connectivity since in South Africa, national long distance networks, connectivity across Southern Africa. It's invested in most of the subsea cables around the West Coast and the East Coast. So that's WEOC, and it's grown very well over the 15 years, expanding to other parts of Africa as well. And it decided strategically that it would set up data centers as part of its overall value proposition. A few years ago, it set up open access data centers in 2018 and announced with the funding of $500 million into digital infrastructure over 5 years. And open access data centers has been established and growing tremendously since. Facilities in South Africa, Durban, and Asando in Joburg, Rondebosch in Cape Town, Brackenfell in Cape Town. Significantly, actually, we also have about 30 other edge data centers across South Africa. Now, I talked about WEOC and the subsea cables. It's actually one of the partners in Google's Aquino cable around the east of the west coast of Africa, and also Meta's 2 Africa cable, which is around the west coast and also the east coast of Africa. So we land the Google Aquino cable into the facility in Lagos. We have a large facility in Lagos. And also in Durban, we land the 2 Africa cable into Durban.
So how many data centers do you now have in South Africa, and maybe what plans do you have? Are you planning to have more of these data centers?
Yes, on demand. Actually, the ones we have, we're expanding. Our Joburg facility is expanding. We're building out what we have in Durban. In particular, as soon as that 2 Africa cable goes live, we expect increased significant uptake there. And we have Brackenfell coming live in the next month. With the edge facilities, where we see good concentration, the edge data centers work in conjunction with the national long-distance networks. You can see the points of concentration in key locations across the country. And now and then we see that there's a need and a demand for where we have the eyeballs, take content closer to the edge, closer to the point of consumption, So this is a business case. We'd put a new edge data center there. We have one in Knysna that's gone live just recently. So we will, on a demand basis, progressively look to see how we grow that footprint.
I like figures. You mentioned the $500 million investment. Of that 500 million, how much would you say you are looking to invest, maybe within South Africa itself?
We don't sort of partition it to say X amount is in, I say South Africa, a country, for instance. We also don't necessarily say X is data centers or digital connectivity. We have this proposition, two key aspects to our proposition. You've got the core to edge strategy. You have the core data centers and the edge to take content to the point of consumption, leveraging the capability of our wholesale open access connectivity infrastructure. Now, that's one part. There's also the converged open digital infrastructure. We bring the synergies of connectivity, open access connectivity, with carrier neutral open access data centers to have a converged approach. The same thing goes to the way we therefore look at the investments that we have. We optimize the investment and maximize the investment where the returns and the demand indicate that. But considering that we have right now 4 core data centers in South Africa and 30 other edge data centers, a significant investment over and above what we've done so far with the connectivity business.
And also looking at your African operations, I understand you are from Lagos. What are you also doing in other countries besides South Africa?
Yes. So we have, as I mentioned, a large facility in Lagos, a flagship one. That's been live since February this year. It's got a significant building front of house and the white space expanding, already 1.2 megawatts of IT load this year. It's landed the Equiano cable into Lagos, and we're actually building that out to an additional 24 megawatts over the next few years. The first 12 of that coming in live Q4 next year. We are looking at other locations, also edge locations, also in the country, as we've done in South Africa. A significant one also is the investment we've made in DR Congo, in Kinshasa. That will be the first, high quality data center, Tier 3 certified in the country. Carrier neutral, building out an ecosystem of all carriers being there, vibrant pairing ecosystems that we really do believe will change the landscape over there for interconnection and pairing. Typically, every data center we launch is neutral, and we leverage the relationships that we have to build neutral pairing interconnect ecosystems. That's what's happening in Kinshasa, what we have building out in Lagos and other locations in South Africa. Expansion trajectory and strategies looking at other countries as well to extend the core to edge strategy, and that includes locations such as Ghana, Zambia, Malawi, and so on, which is looked at on its case by case basis, and we then use that to drive the investment strategy.
Just maybe out of interest, Dr. Coker, if you can just explain to us, like, what is a carrier neutral data center and what is a edge data center?
Okay. A carrier neutral data center is one that is operated not by a carrier that is in itself offering actual sort of full carrier services into enterprises and so on. The benefits of having a carrier neutral data center is all the carriers and ISPs are very happy to exist in that data center as a point where they can be at, run the services at, have a point of presence at, and can cross-connect and interconnect. Also, ideal place for you to have an internet exchange or internet exchanges being open access, right? That enables you to optimize and localize data around that data center. What's the importance of a neutral data center? If a data center was not neutral and you have a carrier owning the data center, other carriers and ISPs feel I'm operating in a competitor's environment. And although some might come in for bringing that connectivity to meet a specific client in the data center, typically they wouldn't really be creating a vibrant interconnect ecosystem. You're my competitor and I've got my equipment running in a facility. I would be wondering if you're getting a view of what I'm doing. So that's the difference between a carrier-based data center, owned data center, and a carrier-neutral data center. Now, with WIOC, what we have is an open access wholesale connectivity offering where we focus on the wholesale. Actually, those carriers and ISPs are key partners and clients of ours. So it's a very, very critical combination of having an open access connectivity offer with a carrier neutral open access data center offer. It's the only one in Africa, I would have said, and it's particularly unique in the kind of converged value proposition we take into the marketplace.
And the edge data center?
Yes. What an edge data center is, okay, so something called latency, right? Where if the point of delivering the service in a data center is a long way from the point of consumption, you have latency and that comes into play. As you have other high performance connectivity solutions coming like 5G and so on, things degrade very, very quickly over distance. What edge data centers do are smaller data centers, significantly smaller. It could be 5 racks, it could be 10, 15, 20 racks. That's the kind of range you would get that enable you to put a data center closer to the point of consumption. Okay, it means therefore that you aggregate content, as they say, closer to the eyeballs. The eyeballs are the ones that would use their phones or other access modes at tablets or computers to access content. It actually transforms the customer experience of all of the applications that you're using at the point of use. Another critical thing in terms of impact here is that ISPs, other smaller carriers, don't have to build infrastructure to get to the point of the edge. We can carry them on our open networks. They can operate at the edge. We worry about consistent power and all of that, right? They can interconnect freely and vibrantly at the point closer to where their customers are. And this is transformative for them. So immediately you don't have to do things like finding backup power and so on and so forth with some of the load shedding we have. And it enables you to run your business on a pay-as-you-go basis. You see, the other differentiator we have here, we're shifting the differentiator in the market, not from the people who own infrastructure, right? The differentiator is now moved towards a customer service that is delivered at the point of use. That's what edge data centers are, and that's why they're beneficial. Another statistic here has been used for quite a few years now and proven. The International Telecoms Union with the World Bank say that every 10% of broadband penetration can grow GDP by an average of 1.5%. In emerging markets, it's actually about 2.5% of GDP. Now, could you imagine here where we have the broadband penetration, we have the edge data centers, actually helps to drive broadband consumption and adoption. The systemic impact it has is significant. From a green point of view as well, it means therefore that people do not have to drive a long way if they need to get access to their core data centers, because it's actually typically closer to the point of use.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Coker. Also, like looking at the South African market, there's a lot of activity that is happening here. US company, I think Vantage, recently built like a data center here. We have got Terraco, which is also expanding its data centers. We've got liquid-owned African data centers, which is also making investments in this space. How are you seeing competition in the data center market here in South Africa?
It's a competitive marketplace, and that's why we're very clear about the value proposition we take into the marketplace. However, it's a competitive marketplace into a growing marketplace here. If you look at the statistics, with 1.4 billion population in Africa, the amount of data center installed capacity is only 1% of what's in the world, and we have about 15% of world population, right? The amount of installed capacity is only 30% of what's available in London. Just London, 1.4 billion people, right? Half of what's in Amsterdam, okay? So the headroom for growth is significant. Interesting statistics also that 51% of Africa's installed data center footprint right now is in South Africa, okay? And that's growing. But what we're also saying that there's a growth across other parts of Africa as well. Typically, you'll see scale capacity shifting towards Lagos and shifting towards Nairobi, and it's a better balance across the continent. So coming back to South Africa, I think it's a more competitive environment. It's good to see other players coming in because clearly they've looked at the potential for the marketplace and they see that there's potential for growth. You see Terraco's growth as well. You see normal growth going away from just a concentration of Joburg to, say, other locations like Cape Town and with the edge data centers that we have in place. However, I really do believe that the growth players will be those who get the value proposition right. They get the price point right for what clients want and have comprehensive, neutral marketplaces that allow people and companies and carriers to come in and interconnect and grow. Just one large interconnect point is not necessarily, sufficient for a large country and population and economy as South Africa. So we'll see how those things play out. And that's why we believe a comprehensive value proposition that we have in the marketplace here and the right price point is a winning strategy for us in an increasingly a competitive marketplace.
Great. We also have the hyperscalers. Microsoft has got some, availability zones here in South Africa. AWS as well. Then I think Google has announced plans that it also wants to build data centers. How different is open access data centers from these hyperscalers like your AWS, Google, and Azure?
Okay, our core data centers are built to specifications that would meet what the requirements are for hyperscalers. Okay, it's good the hyperscalers are coming in here and they make their decision, they make their buy-build decisions, and so time to market considerations and so on. There's an interesting key market driver in that. One, we talk about the latency, getting the capacity closer to the point of use. That in itself, as adoption grows, will practically mean the hyperscalers need to be here. They need to be in South Africa. They need to be in Africa, especially at the key consumption points, right? Another development in Europe, actually, is that the availability of power is an increasing issue. It's talked about significantly when you go to and talk at the conferences and the marketplace and so on in Europe. AI is starting to come up with significant workload demands for data center capacity in Europe. So what do? If you don't get the planning permission for the huge mega data centers, you need to optimize the spaces you have right now. First thing you do, look at capacity substitution. What's African that's running over there can be taken over to run in Africa. And you see that capacity substitution and optimization driving much more load here. That means you'll see more hyperscalers coming in here. If you look at the capacity, subsea capacity that's been brought in by the Google's Equiano, which just one cable has capacity that's larger than the total of everything we have right now. And we got two Africa coming, east and west. Those are combinations that will drive uptake. So it's a good thing. It's inevitable the hyperscalers will come here. They'll take colocation capacity. They will build a combination of both. Some will build, some won't. But the scale certainly is coming over here, and that's good for the marketplace. Now, if you also look at some of the demand drivers, sovereign data rules, data protection rules, and a combination of things like that, as they increasingly get enforced, right? Then there will be more and more of a need to host hyperscale cloud services and content services locally. But even separate to that, there's just the practicality at the points of consumption. You need to host closer to the point of consumption. And given the scale and size of Africa, you'll find that it's going to drive significant scale growth into the Lagos area, into the southern Nairobi area. And also you'll then find other mid-size data centers coming up at the right level of quality across critical consumption points across the continent.
Awesome. You mentioned load shedding earlier. If you can just maybe tell us what sorts of problems is load shedding presenting to a company like yours?
Power uptime is a core competency for data center operators, and you'll have to architect your power to take into account load shedding. Of course, what it means, therefore, is that the less utility power you have, okay, and the more you have to run on diesel, the higher the total cost of diesel, okay. However, 100% uptime with power is a core competency, and that's what we do. But it means that our clients don't have to worry about that. They collocate with us. They can focus, rest assured that they can just focus on their core business. They don't have to put capital into building something, right? When the competitive nature of the general economy is that capital needs to go to the front end and the core of the business. And you see, when you need business agility, you can't be building data centers. Right now, you need to be able to pivot the business. You need to be able to bring in new service offerings. You need to be able to leverage cloud very quickly. You need to do these things. So it's a no-brainer. Collocate. Let that be somebody else's problem, and look at how you have a combination of your cloud and data center footprint to optimize the business. So the power issue is an increasing challenge, but we engineer to continue to have that 100% uptime. Now, at the edge locations, we also bring in a whole range of solutions, technologies, UPS sustenance over increasing number of hours to be able to sustain the footprint we have. We have, in some instances, where we would require generators to supplement that. In some instances, we actually also have mobile generation. Okay, to depending on the location, depending on the scale of the edge data centers. So as long as we have load shedding, it'll continue to ensure we leverage the engineering solutions that we have in place. But it's not particularly good for the total cost of power if you have to generate using diesel. And also, the better you aggregate, the utility power, the lower your costs are, and so on and so on.
So how much would you say roughly you are spending on burning diesel in a month?
Okay. You see, the number is increasing as you have. I don't have a say total number to you to say X number of dollars, and I wouldn't say it actually because it's a metric that I would be giving out, and in the know of energy so generation, it's a significant amount. Do you know a big consumption of EBITDA, yes, is if you have huge energy costs, right? And as you see energy prices growing, you certainly don't want the shift to being diesel, so burning. One of the things that we're doing here also is energy, where there's substitution on energy with solar as well. So as much as we can, we are implementing solar footprints in our data centers. And what that does, it supplements at the right points in the day what we might have taken out into burning diesel. So that's a key engineering, opportunity really that we're taking up and increasing our renewable footprint for generation significantly across our locations.
Also, maybe for a company with operations in different African countries, what would you say are maybe the main similarities or differences within the markets that you are present in?
Yes, it sort of varies in the markets, and you have to take this global local view. That approach means that the competencies that we have, core competencies, we hold centrally within the group, not necessarily just in one country. But we have a virtual sort of group structure where you have a lead of a competency across the board. You have local teams that operate the data centers, or that would be there in building the data centers and extending the data centers, ensuring a maximum uptime, 100% uptime, as much as they can. What you find is you have to look at each local situation in its own context, but there are similarities. You'll have some unpredictable logistics issues where you have to deliver mechanical and electrical equipment. Some of these are not necessarily available in some of those countries where you would have to ship the equipment in. You do have to build local competency. And we do substitute and support from the core competencies at the center. And not all sort of regulations are the same across different countries. Africa is diverse, 54 countries, very diverse. The Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement will bring increasing commonality over time, right? But nevertheless, you still have to locally look at exactly what I would call that the operating parameters are with respect to general regulation and so on. But we see that global local approach being the best way to optimize. And we do also put a lot of emphasis in making sure that we build local competencies as quickly as we can, wherever we are.
You also mentioned earlier, Doctor, that I can't remember your example, but you mentioned something like London, the amount of data that they're generating or whatever. Why has Africa been left behind to that extent that we're still trying to catch up, if we are even going to catch up?
Yes, it's a whole range of things around digital infrastructure, and it's evolved over the years. If you look at increasing subsea cables coming around Africa, the issue is actually getting the penetration, broadband penetration, out into the landlocked parts of the continent. Okay. And if you look at the amount of lit connectivity on the continent, up to around about 3 to 4 years ago, it used to be pretty dark around the middle, what I call the dark spine of Africa, or even in some of the internal parts of even more sophisticated countries like South Africa. But that's changed significantly over the years. And, you keep finding countries announcing increasing broadband penetration. And that's what's been happening. The demand growth and investments has been very much more in Europe and the US, and then you find Southern America, growth in Asia, and so on. And Africa hasn't sort of had that investment come in as quickly as others. As we have the increase in connectivity, we're now seeing uptake in data center build. Okay, and that's the way it has been for some time. Now, in some areas, actually, typically you'll find it does happen. It's possible for Africa to leapfrog. If you look at fintech, for instance, if you look at banking technology over the last 10 years, 15 years, banking technology has actually been leapfrogging. A lot of stuff that we've taken for granted over here are only just being played catch up with, even from the US, right? With new data centers coming in, we are actually building the hyperscale technologies with the latest technology, okay? Where you have some legacy data centers that exist in Europe and other locations. So with that, it gives us the opportunity to significantly increase the amount of digital infrastructure footprint that's available in Africa. Why might it allow us to leapfrog? I chair the Africa Data Center Association, and we work with some partners also to do the PU effectiveness, efficiency measures of data centers across Africa. And interestingly, you find African data centers look competitive from this power effective point of view. Why? It's because they're newer. It's because they're coming in with newer technology. And initially it looks surprising. And then when you unpick the data, you start to realize that actually this is what's happening. Okay. So what that says to me is that it's actually, as we build out the right technologies, possible for us to become the preferred points of delivering the kind of scale of data that you can hold and host anywhere across the world. Africa also has a significant geophysical advantage. It's sort of same time zone broadly as Europe, and in the middle of time zones out to Asia and out to the West, and highly connected through to Europe through the east and the west side of Africa, through to Portugal, through to London, through to Marseille, and out to the east, to the far east, towards Singapore. So the variety of things that are coming together, that means that we will see significantly increased footprint of connectivity and data center infrastructure across the continent. And it goes back to that competitive question you asked about. So South Africa, competition comes in, new high quality comes in, the scale grows, it's good for the market.
So this association that you chair, that you just mentioned, will you be working with other, maybe your competitors, if I can put it?
Oh yeah, okay. We are the board is got members from other companies. We leave the company at the door and we get together and work together to build the ecosystem across Africa. And it's been in place for the last 5 years. It's been growing. We have most operators across Africa, and actually international ones as well, that look at the African market. So you have, the membership consists of carriers, it consists of data center operators, it consists of the sort of data center value chain of people that provide mechanical and electrical equipment, and so on, over 50 members. And it's growing. And we're looking at the possibilities of growing the membership by optimizing more the membership structure that opens it up a lot more. So we cooperate, I guess, on that. And it's actually a very sort of vibrant association where we see the benefit of growing, building the ecosystem across Africa.
So have you given yourselves maybe like targets to say by this year we need to have maybe how many data centers?
We don't look at how many data centers we should have. It's up to each of their own companies to build their own targets. But one of the things we really do target is how we grow the membership ecosystem and grow the association, given the value add of the association into the industry. And we are putting in place a kind of actions over a couple of years where we see our membership going to 100 or more. We really do see and believe that we are making good progress in being one of the leading, recognized, respected data center associations in the world. It's similar to what you have in the European Data Center Association, for instance, which has been around for a while. And we looked at that and we felt, well, actually, and that's what we've been doing, put together a really strong, credible association for the industry here in Africa. Membership and a board actually covers Africa. We've got a board member from South Africa, one from Zimbabwe, East Africa, some from West Africa, North Africa, and sort of slightly by design, but it just shows the diversity that we have, because board positions are openly elected positions. And I'm delighted that we've been able to represent the broad spectrum of Africa from an Africa country diversity point of view and also from a gender diversity point of view.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Dr. Coker. Just lastly, maybe looking into the South African market, what are the biggest opportunities that you are witnessing in this market, and what are the investment opportunities that you also are you planning to bring to this market?
Okay, so one, changing sort of demographics, right? Younger population. Two, we see new workload demands coming in. You'll see that shift of AI, as I talked about. Not just sort of AI, but it's one example that's bringing increasing workload and demand. So we see that as something that will bring increasing requirement for scale and content. I think that you'll find more of the content players, not just the big names you mentioned, okay? Because there are quite a few others that actually deliver solutions into the marketplace, increasing use of TikTok, so on, and aggregates content in different ways. That brings other content providers to need to be closer to the point of use. I think that is going to increase the growth for one, core data centers, and also those edge data centers I talked about, and also therefore this demand for open connectivity to get this data across the country and out of the country and back into the country, right? So you will find that there will be increasing investment in digital infrastructure to provide that. Also, I talked about broadband penetration. Okay, one key part of that equation is also broadband content adoption. But you need to get penetration first, and then you get the adoption, and then you get the content consumption, right? As we get that bit better, I think you will find that there's a lot of investment case for the upstream to deliver the infrastructure to enable that consumption to go up. And I think also those are sort of the kind of growth vectors for the economy as a whole. Broadening the economy away from some of the core centers. Right now, we have growth and consumption, so Joburg, Cape Town, and so on, and broadening access to content across the country.
Awesome. That was Dr. Ayotunde Coker, CEO of Open Access Data Centers. Thank you so much, Dr. Coker, for coming to ITWeb TV. I hope you have a good time here in South Africa, and all the best at AfricaCom, where you are headed.
Thank you very much. It's been great having a chat with you, and delighted to have been here. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Don't forget to subscribe to our ITWeb TV YouTube channel. And for this and more, you can visit www.itweb.co.za.